Good morning. It's Tuesday, December 19th, 2023, and it's 8:03 a.m., and I'll call the SELCO Commission meeting to order for the month of December. We have a quorum of 4 people present, and our other Commissioner, Mr. Beaton, is on speaker with us, and so as a result, any votes that we take today, please remind me it has to be a roll call vote. Okay? With that said, we call the meeting to order. And the next item on the agenda is review and consider approval of the November 2023 bill schedule and warrants. I'm aware there is just one page, signature page for the warrants this time. There's no split.
Yeah, that's
any
right.
conflicts? Do we have any comments or corrections or questions about the bill schedules and warrants?
None for me.
None.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
second, okay. All in favor, roll call. Mr. Trippi?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ruffolo?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Beaton?
Yes.
Okay, and Bob Holland? Yes. Okay. Next is review and consider approval of the meeting minutes of November 28th, 2023. Do we have any comments, corrections, or questions on those?
One correction,
Yes, ma'am?
under 4, it says my Roy instead of Mr. Roy.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
My Roy.
Okay, any other corrections or comments? Given that correction, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay. All in favor, roll call. Maria Lemieux,
Yes.
Mike Ruffolo,
Yes.
Tony Trippi.
Yes.
Okay, and Matt Beaton?
Yes.
Yes, okay, and Bob Holland, yes. Okay. Next is a review of the 2023 Energy Programs and Demand Side Management, DSM, update. And I understand we have some guests that are going to present that. Please identify yourselves.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Becca Keene. I'm SELCO's Director of Integrated Resources and Customer Experience.
I'm Patrick Collins, Integrated Resources Analyst.
Okay, thank you.
So we are here with a hopefully very intriguing update on our energy programs for 2023. We had a good year in terms of customer participation, so we're excited to share the highlights with you. Next slide. Before we get into some data-heavy slides, just a slide to help guide today's conversation and also illuminate how we in the Integrated Resources team make programming decisions. So the topic of energy efficiency is not what it was decades ago, or even a single decade ago when I started my career in this field. Traditionally, when you think about energy efficiency and the way that utilities should influence energy consumption, you think of one main concept, conservation. So saving a kilowatt hour wherever you can. So the utility roles under that concept is usually educating people to do things like turning the lights off when they leave a room, offering free or discounted LED or CFL bulbs, and offering rebates on efficient appliances. So that is ground that has been well covered by EE programs for a long time now. And promoting conservation is still a very important role for us as the utility. But nowadays we have another guiding philosophy. It's called strategic electrification. It's it's a mouthful, we'll say, but the definition is up on the screen. What does it mean? It means moving customers away from fossil fuel-based technology to electric alternatives, and doing so in a way that is reducing pollution and energy costs for everyone. Now, what does that mean in practice for a utility like SELCO? It means promoting electric-based technologies like heat pumps and EVs while simultaneously decarbonizing our power supply, like we're doing by shooting for being fully non-emitting by 2032. And then also being mindful as we're growing our load, not to do so on peak. What else here? I think I have a couple more points on this slide. Oh yeah, one last point. Public power is very well positioned to carry out this concept of strategic electrification in a way that benefits the entire community. We have full command of both our power supply and our programming, hence the term integrated resources. We also know how to design our programs so that they're successful, since we have that close-knit relationship. We also, with the community. We also happen to have lower rates than surrounding towns, so it often makes financial sense for customers to switch from another fuel type to electricity. All right, what do we get next? I think it's you, Patrick. Yep.
So as you can see, our energy programs have evolved quite a bit over the years. There's been consistent year-over-year growth in terms of spending. And as you can see, there was a pretty good jump in 2021 when the Integrated Resources Department was formed. And so the chart on the left is showing total spending. So this includes rebates, audit funding, heat pump consultations, and loan financing. And the loan financing does come back to us. So in 2023, about $200,000 of that total right there is in loan financing, and it comes back to us usually over a 5-year repayment period. And you can see the number of loans have also jumped up quite a bit this year. We revamped the program to include whole home heat pumps, and that's really been the major participation in that program.
Can you describe the loan program?
Sure. So customers pre-apply. They have to have a home energy audit performed and a quote from a contractor. There's various upgrades that they can receive. It's zero interest loan, up to 5 years, actually up to 7 for income qualified customers. So they have to have audit and a quote, and they pre-apply. We approve it. And the work is performed, and it helps lower up that upfront cost for the customer, and they repay it through their bill as a line item.
Oh, is it a maximum loan amount?
Yep, it's $10,000 for heat pumps, and we plan to add solar to that, up to $10,000. There's also weatherization, so attic insulation, air sealing, replacement windows, a service upgrade. So, for example, upgrading from 100 amp service to 200 amp, those are all up to $3,500. And the combining the loan with rebates, we have rebates for all of those as well. Usually it can cover a pretty good chunk of these upgrades.
Excellent.
And if somebody that has gas to their house or available, if they take a mass save loan, they won't use our loan, but they can still get our rebates in combination with mass save.
That's correct. Yep. Customers with gas, they're Eversource customers, and they can leverage a lot of the mass save incentives, and I will get into that.
I'm sorry to steal.
Stealing his thunder.
All right, so this is the commercial participation. You can see it's a declining trend over the years. We are, I think, rebounding this year, and all these numbers are through Q3, so totals at the end of the year will obviously be higher, and we are exploring ways to better serve our commercial and industrial customers to try to get the participation numbers up there. I'll also get into that a bit later. This is a snapshot of our array of programs that we offer. We've added a lot in the past handful of years. Like 5 of these programs didn't exist 3 years ago, so we're always paying attention to emerging technologies, and we're trying to drive adoption of electrification of all home energy assets and transportation. So we have appliances, audits, heat pumps, EVs. Connected Homes is our demand response program, solar and electric yard equipment, and battery backup. So our primary focus areas, we are prioritizing our funding towards those. That includes heat pumps, EVs, EV charging, and then coupling that with demand response so that we are load shifting, and it really ensures maximum return on investment for us. And I was involved in a pretty innovative project. It was a deed project. There was a grant awarded. We worked with the Center for Ecotechnology and MWEC, and we kind of analyzed the best way to align incentives with our evolving goals, which is decarbonization and electrification. And we kind of modeled out each different measures that we're incentivizing, and it informed which measures to incentivize the most based on modeled decarbonization and return on investment for the utility. And these were the areas that were highlighted, and so we really adjusted rebate amounts based on these conclusions for this program year.
Can I just, Mr. Chair, if I could
Go
just
ahead,
jump
go
in
ahead.
with a question? Thank you. On that last slide, Patrick, could you just expand a little bit on, I guess, the levers that we have to pull, or the tools in the toolbox on the last bullet on demand response with the load shift and dispatch? Because and as I hear this presentation, this is awesome and all great stuff. And at the core of all of this is an effort to decarbonize, electrification, minimize fossil fuel use. And on the demand response is I would assume our targeted time frame and demand response is moments of peak demand, and with that comes both cost saving for the ratepayer, but also an increase or a decrease in the carbon profile in those moments of time. So I'm heat pumps and EVs are clear, directed towards electrification, and I just love to hear a little bit more detail on the demand response side and what we're doing there, and basically what do we have in the tool belt to advance that.
Sure. So Connected Homes is our demand response program. The back end to that is virtual peaker. So Wi-Fi smart-enabled devices are enrolled in the program. They have to be compatible with virtual peaker, so it has to be compatible brands, basically. And there's different categories of devices you can enroll. So EV chargers are a popular one. Thermostats are by far the most popular. There's battery storage backup, which can actually be dispatched and backfeed or feed your home. And so all of these different systems can be combined and aggregated together. It can make a big difference during peak times. And like you said, during those peak times, the fuel mix of the grid is typically dirtier than lower peak times. So those marginal fuels like oil tend to kick in at those times. So load shifting does result in decarbonization. Hope that answers your.
Do we have that now? Are people using this?
Yep, we have 300 customers enrolled and over 400 devices.
We have a slide on it.
Yeah, we have a slide.
Oh, you do have a slide on it? Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe this follow-up question will be answered in that slide, but what is the management of that? Like, how do we aggregate that? Like the sort of the nuts and bolts of that process?
So it is administered by MWEC, and like I said, they use the back end that enables everything is Virtual Peaker. So they have a partnership with this company called Virtual Peaker. They use their platform to enroll these customers and their devices, and then Virtual Peaker sends that dispatch signal to each customer. Usually it's an email saying, hey, there's a peak coming up. There is the option to opt out for customers. I think there's like a 3-strike type of limit. So if customers opt out, they won't get the monthly incentive. And I didn't get into the monthly incentives, but they're $30 for a battery storage, $15 for EV chargers, and then $5 per month for thermostats.
Okay. And is that quote unquote penalty tied to the specific appliance, or is it the overall load profile for the residents?
So the device is Wi-Fi enabled, so it has to be connected to the internet, and then that dispatch signal, for example, thermostats, it decreases if it's a heating, it decreases the temperature to decrease the heating load of the home.
It seems like it's directly related to the actual appliance.
Correct, yep.
Yeah. And so it would automatically set back the thermostat, and then the penalty would come in if the homeowner overrode that and turned
Correct.
it up? Okay.
Now, is a demand response to go, if the town, if we, SELCO, install batteries ourselves, will that be part of the demand response as well, or is that part of the grid management more than?
Yeah, that would be outside of the
Okay.
typical demand response. Yeah.
Connected homes is pretty residential focused.
But the timing would be the same or similar.
Yeah, but there are homes currently being built right now that are having batteries installed as part of a solar slant electric installation and new construction, which would be very valuable. You're saying $30 a month to be able to be called on when needed if you're willing to participate. So it's a nice little rebate, gift that keeps on giving.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so this is kind of a snapshot of the project that I just mentioned. And as you can see, heat pumps are, a clear smart investment for a utility. You insert a dollar amount for carbon, and then it produces a carbon-based incentive. You can see that column on the right. And this is all modeled over the useful life of the system. So currently our heat pump incentive for non-natural gas customers is $2,000 per ton, and for gas customers it's $1,000 per ton. And you can see the net revenue impact over the lifetime of the system. So investing in heat pumps and EVs is a smart investment for SELCO.
All right, so now on to specific data for the 2023 programs. This is presenting actual data through Q3 on our residential programs only. We have a couple other slides on the commercial programs coming up. So the chart on the left, it's kind of tough to see the data labels, but this chart is showing the percentage of total funds given to residents by program. You'll see that our number 1 and 2 programs by total funding given were heat pumps at 33% and EVs at 31%. Those are those big pieces, and then the loan program came in at number 3. And some of that funding under the loan programming will also be put toward electrification projects. So per this data, our program activities are aligning with that concept of strategic electrification. And the table to the right is providing rebates by individual account. So the largest category per that metric was EVs, followed by energy audits, and then our lawn equipment program, which is one of our newer ones. When did that come? 2 years ago,
Yeah.
I think. And it's been pretty popular. So over the course of the 9 months, we gave out a total of 652 individual rebates, amounting to almost $900,000. And as Patrick mentioned, some of these programs, most of the ones at the top, do have an eventual return for SELCO. All right, I think next slide, unless there's any questions on that slide. Okay. This is a more detailed look at the loan program. We've already covered a lot of what was on this slide, but you'll see that the top categories here are by far the whole home heat pump projects. So again, we're really working on that electrification. And we gave out 24 loans across the 9 months, and that's quite a jump from what we've given out in the past. And Patrick and I do have plans on maintaining the emphasis on this program, because some of the feedback we've gotten from residents in the past that when they're thinking about these major energy projects, one of the biggest hurdles is upfront capital. So this program directly addresses that, and we think that customers are finding it pretty helpful, and it's motivating them to go forward with these projects.
Do we know how much it costs to do a conversion?
Varies quite a bit.
It does.
Yeah.
So heat pumps you're asking about?
Yep.
Yeah, so of course it depends on the size of the home. I would say it ranges from 15,000 to up to 30,000.
Okay, thank you.
How many people have done it?
So we can go back to the other slide. We've had 104 incentives awarded through this through 3 quarters this year.
That's not the loan program, that's, the 104
No,
was
that's-
the rebate, right?
Correct. So 15.
You just said 26 for the whole home.
15 for whole home heat pumps out of the 24 for this year.
How did you develop the loan paperwork?
So that was started back in 2006, I believe. Are you
wouldn't-
asking about how the program started? or-
No, I wouldn't mind looking at the loan agreement, just to see what it says.
Sure.
Is it on the website, or you have to sign on to the portal, as if you're going through the process?
I don't think it's public
Okay,
facing.
all right.
We send them individually to customers. It's basically a page and a half.
Promissory note or something?
Yep,
Yeah, wouldn't mind looking at it.
sure.
I know most people understand it, but there are some folks, when I go talk about heat pumps, because I recently put that system in myself, is that they're not aware that not only does it provide heat, it also provides cooling,
Yep.
so that you get AC. So that's a combined rate to fully air condition and heat your home. And invariably, it just, some folks don't realize that. So,
Yep.
What is your experience on it?
excellent.
It's not running 24/7?
It doesn't, it runs smooth, it doesn't kick on and off, it just maintains a steady temperature band. If it's all of a sudden gets too hot, the air conditioning automatically shifts over. You don't have to shift anything. If it gets too cold,
So it's always blowing? Almost
well,
like
it doesn't,
always
only if it needs it, only if there's any temperature, it gets in the band
Yeah.
and it'll shut down. But you have your inline ionic filters and things like that take care of it. Humidification's already taken care of in it. I have the option because where I'm located down at the village of Orchard Meadows, we have gas, and I opted to have a slight backup. I know Patrick would rather have me go strict, pure heat pump, but we have a backup which has only kicked on maybe once or twice. When the temperature really drops suddenly, it'll give a boost to it. It's only on for a few minutes, and then you're back to regular heat pump operations. So, very quiet. It's, you don't hear the cycling of a burner coming on all the time. It's just, the only reason you even know it's on is you put your foot over the regulator or something, and you might feel a little bit warmer air. It's not a blast of hot or cold air coming in.
Did you get a rebate from the gas also?
Okay, so the Bob Holland story. I went and got a Mass Save loan, okay, which is it's pretty much what we have here, but because Mass Save, they did the inspection, or they provided an inspector, I did the same thing. But then also, once I had it installed, because I was a gas customer, I was able to get the mass save rebates, but also because of the option we have, if you already, if you do have gas, you get a smaller rebate from SELCO, obviously, but was able to provide that, and it's lower for the tonnage that I have. But I basically have a 4-ton system because I have a 2,400 square foot home, and so it came out to about $23,000. But then you take in the loans and the $8,000 or more in rebates, I was down to $15,000, and I have a completely new replacement of a 20-year air conditioning and heating system.
That's a good deal.
That's a give and take. But that's my story. That's why I'm very positive on electrification.
Is there a risk of like double dipping where they get a rebate from somehow? Nah.
Nope.
Or a loan on the same project?
Well, I don't know about the loan. I only took one loan, but the rebates were eligible to both sides.
Couldn't you get the loan on both, though?
Don't know.
Is there a question that says, are you getting, are you getting a loan from?
Yeah, usually I talk to customers if they are, I ask them like, what is your existing heating system? If they have gas, I point them towards the heat loan. And most of them just go with that. It's up to $60,000.
Yeah, I was fully financed through Mass Save. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no limit to it, basically.
Okay.
And all of that paperwork, because there's a big argument, SELCO and Mass Save, because they have a new contractor for Mass Save, everything from the time I applied till everything was done and I had every rebate in pocket was 6 total weeks. But that includes inspections, ordering the parts, getting it installed, applying for the rebates and getting the rebates.
Well,
Wow. That's highly efficient.
That's why we're going electric. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
If I may, just to add one component to the integrated resources side. So I'd say in 2015, I replaced my failed oil system with a whole home heat pump. So for almost 10 years now, I've had nothing but a heat pump system in my house, and it's worked great. I do have, for the polar vortex, we hit that era, I do have a wood stove that I can kick on as needed. But for the most part, been very happy. One thing I think it's worth noting with the integrated part of this whole thing is if you couple it with other programs like solar, for instance, right, you're not going to make your own natural gas. You can't, drill for your own oil. You pair this with solar, you're essentially now a self-sufficient heating and cooling system at your own house. So that's where I think it's important to tie together the integrated nature of this. Is you don't have to do it that way,
Yeah.
but if you utilize our solar programs and utilize our heat pump program, you essentially can combine that into a more, self-reliant.
And home battery storage is going through the roof as well, so we really do make yourself self-sustaining.
how do we motivate new construction? Do we work also with builders and give motivation to builders?
Yeah, so there have been a few home builders that we've awarded residential rebates to. They're building a residential home. They reach out to us and ask if they can receive a rebate, and we have awarded those. On the commercial side, we do have a new construction and kind of custom incentive program for those more commercial buildings.
Mhm.
And if we catch wind of a development coming, we also try to be proactive about approaching them and letting them know the benefits of going our direction, basically.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
and that's happened a few times this year.
Yep.
Yeah, I think one of the things that even we can improve on, but it's not necessarily our job, but the contractors who do not normally work in Shrewsbury are not familiar with our electric rates. They're not familiar with the incentives, like next to zero. And yet once they get involved, that's when they're reaching out to you, fortunately, as we direct them as best we can to find out about that, and then they become disciples as well.
Next slide, we've covered a lot of what's on here. It was just a even more zoomed in view at some of the individual programs. This, there is a breakdown of the, the lawn equipment program. And the top device there is lawnmowers, which I think is expected. And then if you look up in the far right corner, heat pumps, one thing we didn't cover is that there are different types of heat pump projects. If you're not ready to do that full-fledged whole home type approach, there are ductless systems that you can put in, and those fall under the tier 1 rebate. So we have about half of folks going that route. What's tier 2? Is that?
That's
is
a whole home.
That is whole home,
Yeah.
okay.
Tier 1 is partial home.
Partial home,
Oh,
okay.
so that's be like mini splits as
Yep,
well?
Yep.
Tier one?
exactly.
Well, you can have a mini split system serve a whole home.
Okay, so that could be a tier 2 as well if you do, okay.
Okay, so we have about half our residents going in each direction. So under tier 2, they can be whole home, but still ductless,
Yep.
is what you're saying. Okay, great. And then,
Can I just ask a
Matt,
question on the heat pump
go ahead.
requirements? Looking back on the numbers, it just made me curious on the weatherization. I think it's at 5 on weatherization on the last slide. But you mentioned that there's a requirement for the home energy audit for the heat pump installation. Is there, depending on the findings of that audit, is there a weatherization requirement prior to installation of a heat pump?
Yes. So if the recommended weatherization upgrades exceed $1,000, then it is required for the loan and also for the tier 2 rebate.
Okay. And now seeing 15 to 5, does that imply that the majority of the home heat pump installations were on new construction? Because I would expect the weatherization number to be higher, or is that a function of weatherization's been around longer and a lot of these people have already done that?
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure actually.
yeah. Good question.
Yeah. I would say about roughly half of the applications for whole home heat pumps, I would require weatherization coupled with that. Usually it's attic insulation that is most needed.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Just one more thing on this slide, because we need to toot our own horn. For, oh no, I'm sorry, the next one, Patrick, sorry. Connected homes, that 400 devices that we have enrolled makes us the winner, if you will, not to create competition, but in terms of the most devices connected for any MLP in the entire MWIC program.
MLP is what?
Municipal light plant, sorry. So let's just call, say, utility. We have the #1 number of customers actually and devices in that program of all the other munis participating. All right. What's next? I think we only have a couple more slides.
So
Okay.
this is a breakdown of the commercial program participation this year. It's pretty evenly split between the programs. Just a couple backstories on the EV incentives. So a rebate went to the public buildings department for a Bolt, and a charger at the Oak Middle School garage, and a charging station rebate was approved for a small business on Route 20, and an additional station down at Marketplace, Shrewsbury on Route 9.
Are we able to use CPA fundings for any of this? Conservation, preservation?
Probably not, but we can look into that, yeah.
Did we for Brick House?
Yep,
The
that
brick house,
project
right?
is because the goal is preservation of a historical building. Not sure if EV charging stations would fit that criteria. So looking ahead to next year, like I mentioned, we're adding solar back to the loan program in lieu of the rebate program. Solar was part of the program about 10 to 5 years ago, and it was quite popular. So that will be up to 10,000, and it will help customers lower that upfront cost of solar. And next year on the commercial side, we do plan on doing some outreach with these customers to see what they want and how we can better help them. We did try something new this year with awarding commercial incentives based on carbon reduction instead of kilowatt hour reduction. So, switching from that conservation mindset to decarbonization and electrification. So we're monitoring those results, and we will adjust as needed. We're always looking to improve that. And the budget priorities will remain pretty much the same as this year. So the loan program, heat pumps, EVs.
Are we self-financing the loan program, or do we have a bank that actually?
It's self-financed, yep.
All right, on last slide, just to leave you with a couple of seeds of things that are coming. Given our growing DSM budget, we would like to explore the idea of a standalone energy charge to help fund these programs in a predictable and transparent way. So we're not talking a big charge, just something that would be specific to energy programs and that customers could see on their bill and know where those funds are going. And then also on the topic of rate design, we are getting our tools in place that will allow us to move to more innovative billing structures and rate structures eventually. Our new billing system can handle more complicated billing. AMI implementation is unfolding now, and soon we would like to start the conversation with you around potential time of use offerings and other ideas like that. So not immediately, but sometime in the future. I think that's everything we have. We do have some resources here for customers that are interested in learning more. And that's about it.
Really interesting.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
When you guys both said your titles, I didn't even understand what you meant.
Making more sense.
Yeah, that integrated resources and strategic electrification. People
Right.
say the same thing. Like, what?
So thanks for the education. Appreciate your efforts.
Well, does anybody have any other questions? We don't have a vote on this. We'll just thank you very much for the presentation and for putting up for us, jumping ahead and all around us.
Did you already have some thoughts on what you were seeking for a fee or an annual monthly charge, or have you put together any thoughts together, or is that something you just want to plant a seed?
Just planting a
Yeah, I think
seed.
that's something we're gonna want to talk
Yes,
about.
I only just asked Chris if he was okay with the idea and broaching it.
For
in this forum.
discussion.
Yeah, that's as far as we've gone.
Okay, good.
I figure the service desk will be flame sprayed here in the next week or so.
Nice. Nice.
Okay.
What, if I may?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Just
Thank you.
piggyback on that. One of the things, we mentioned dovetailing with Mass Save and whatnot. I do feel like this is an especially relevant topic today because nowadays we not only get compared to other utilities with respect to rates, reliability, performance, but now, there's an increasing focus on energy programs. And so they look at, you see a lot of marketing from Mass Save and the investor-owned utilities on, look at how much money we are spending on Mass Save. They don't talk about what they're doing with that necessarily, but they just talk about the number. And that is a line item on the investor-owned utility bills. And so being able to show, regulatory agencies and legislators what the public power sector is doing helps better influence the fact that we can demonstrate that our effectiveness with these programs is actually perhaps superior to what, it's not always bigger is better necessarily, right? We really make sure every dollar, paid to SELCO for these initiatives are then directly returned back to the community. And so we do that in a very efficient manner with very little surplus So that, I think, is just some of the background behind the seed of an energy charge. It's in that theme. These numbers demonstrate that we're effective with the programs, and these are things that we use as talking points when we go to Boston and Beacon Hill.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, equally as interesting is the next item. Quarterly 3 electric and cable financials.
I love the flattery, but I don't think it's as interesting.
I try.
So I am Jim Zacco, the Director of Finance and Administration, and today we will be going through the Q3 financials. I will apologize up front because I have an investor-owned utility, and last night while I was putting this together, didn't have power, so I wasn't able to dive into some of the numbers, and if anything's a little blurry, I was trying to do it all via laptop. But we do have power back, so I can't complain. That's the... I have to share the other way. Okay, so we will start with the electric Q3. We're going to go over the income statement, balance sheet, and then the cash statement. And then we'll move on to those same reports for the cable financials for Q3. Jumping into electric, taking a look at the income statement, our budget to quarterly, our total operating revenue was 13% above plan, and our year-to-date is 5% above plan. Taking a look into this a couple weeks ago with Becca, we noticed that part of this is because of a 9-cent decrease to our purchase power cost that we weren't expecting, as well as we realized that our budgeting methodology has to change slightly for this function because the energy we use this month is the revenue we collect next month. So when we're doing certain things like GTA and some of those analyses, we have to keep it the same month, but we're going to shift everything over a month so that we can have the financials kind of line up a little better. When we took a look at adjusted financials quickly, everything came in a little bit closer percentage-wise. That was one of the slides me and Becca were going to look at adding something just to show you what that looked like, but we didn't get a chance to. Jumping down to operating expenses, budget to date for the quarter, we're 2% above plan, and year to date, we are 3% below plan. This brings our total, our net income to about 80% above plan for the quarter, and year to date about 54% above plan. Now, if you take a look, our return on investment is showing at 19% right now. We did have a planned increase this year on our return on investment to make sure, A, we were recouping last year, and as you may have remembered from the last time I presented, we're also looking at if there's any overages, being able to fund our rate stabilization. About $4 million would be ish where we're looking at, and we'll be presenting something to you guys at that point in time, because it would either be a fund of that or a return through the GTA. Jumping down to year over year for total operating revenue, quarter to date we are 17% above last year, and taking a look year to date we are 35% above last year. Dropping down to operating expenses, we are 8% below last year on a quarter to date and 2% above year to date. Now, this is where the numbers or percentages get a little funky. Last year's net income is almost 2,000% above. That's also because last year we were looking at losses, and I think Q3 was one of the few quarters we actually had a little bit of a profit last year. Taking a look at year to date, we're about 600% above plan. But again, this is because we were trying to recoup over the losses that we had last year. Jumping over to the balance sheet, our current assets have increased about 6.7 million year over year. Non-current assets about 1.7. That brings our total assets to increase about 8.5 million year over year. Looking at the liabilities, our total liabilities only increased about 290,000 year over year, and our earned surplus increased about 8.2 million, bringing our total liabilities and earned surplus to increase about 8.5 million for the year. Looking at our cash statement, and this is the one where I was telling you it might be a little blurry trying to cut and paste some of it, but our operating cash is around 11 million at the end of September, and our depreciation was 7.3 million at the end of September. And if we jump down, you can see our total cash holdings is about 21.8 million at the end of September, which is a solid spot for cash. And I know that was a little bit on the quicker side, but any questions on the electric?
Lead time for restocking our transformers and the like, seems like they're pretty expensive. We haven't been able to get them. And so is our liabilities or expenses reflecting the part that because we haven't been able to pay for them, is that why we have lower expenses? And then should we think that in the future as deliveries start coming through that our expenses are going to go up?
Yes and no. So the lead times are still there for some of these items. We have put in orders. Those orders do not reflect yet on our financials. They're just on a PO. When they do come in for things like transformers, that will go over to capital. So it will not hit our expenses until it goes through depreciation. So you won't see the expenses increase a lot once those come in, but cash flow will go down because you will be paying for those in that year. One thing to note, and this is one of the exercises I'm going through to try to make the budget a little tighter this year and get a little more accurate with certain things. The income statement is based on accrual accounting, where the cash flow statement is always going to be on cash-based accounting. So today you're paying for something, but the expense may not hit today as well. Because, for example, for anybody at home that might be trying to understand this, if you, purchase a building today at $30 million, you don't want that hitting the expenses all at once. You're going to be utilizing that building for the next 30, 40, 50 years, so you want the expenses to hit over that time period. Same thing with the transformers. As we're buying them to come in, they get capitalized, and the nice part with FERC is we get to capitalize them before they're even in use and start the depreciation process. With the electric side, everything depreciates at 3%, so it's 33.333 years. So it won't have a major impact right away, but you will see that. So when we talk about budgeting next month and we look at the capital purchases, that's where you'll still see there's some higher dollar amounts for items we couldn't procure yet and get certain projects in.
Yes, sir.
May I add
yes, sir.
one detail? Just to add to your capital component, and certainly correct any misstatements I make. When we add to the capital, so for instance, looking at the return on plant percentage, as you can see in the presentation, return on plant is based on net plant value. And so as we continually make investments in the plant and that plant value increases, that subsequent return on plant ratio decreases. And so just as a hypothetical example, if a utility were to not make any plant investments, that net plant value continues to go down, that return on plant figure percentage would continue to climb and get skewed. And so here, with some of our rate making approach, it's looking at dollar value recovery and, in terms of last year versus this year. And then these reporting ratios are also then factor in net plant, which goes back to that delay in transformers, delay in other electrical supplies, and other construction projects. If that helps.
Okay. Maria? You all set?
Okay.
Okay. Great. Okay, let's go on to the Cable.
Jump over to Q3 for cable. Starting off with the income statement, the operating revenue for quarter to date was 2% below plan, and same with year over year. Looking at the operating expenses, quarter to date, they were 4% below plan and 12% year over year. Jumping down to our net income from operations, so this is before we factor in any of the IT-related items. We are at 2% above plan for the quarter, and for the year, we're about 70% above plan. Taking a look at how the IT operations adjusts our operating income, we are still about 2% and for the quarter to date above plan, and about 52% for year to date. Taking a look year over year, our operating expenses quarter to date are 2% below last year, and year to date 1% above last year. Operating expenses are 2% below quarter to date last year, and 3% below year over year. Taking a look at the net income from just operations, we are 14% below last year, and taking a look at the year to date, it is 20% above. When we factor in the IT, our net income adjusted for non-operations for the quarter is 14% below plan, and for the year is 7%.
When are you making the adjustment for that?
When?
Yeah, because, I mean, there's nothing that happens in this quarter, right? So it was something that happened during the year.
So we're making the adjustment. We're doing stuff on a quarterly basis. We are also, just to make sure I clarify, the full pilot payment for the non-cash, the contribution, when we're going to move that over, the plan right now is our Q2, the town's Q4. At the end of the year, we are going to move any money that we have into receivables for year end, and we'll keep that on our books. For this one, we are also just in the process of trying to calculate or examine all the expenses. I can't remember for Q3 if we held off on doing it just because we're still in talks with the town on some of the amounts for the negotiation of certain things. But right now, we're just slightly behind on everything just because we're still with the conversion stuff. So that's the only reason why there's nothing in for Q3. Everything you should see Q4. Once we really get this process rolling, we have our agreement with the town. My goal is to have this quarterly, so you should see numbers every quarter.
Okay.
And pilot is?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Right? Just so.
Yes. And it's
People
not,
yeah, people should understand that.
no, 100%.
Besides, we do give a considerable amount to the town in lieu of taxes.
Yes. And it's not pilot payment because payment's already in it. I have to stop saying that.
You do need to make an adjustment on that, though. Your services is a typo.
Oh,
For the which, oh, we could,
Do you see that?
yep, we could fix that. And so jumping over to the balance sheet for assets. The current assets decreased about $350K year over year. And if we look at, take a look at the non-current assets, they increased about 4.8 million year over year, and that is our fiber build out going in there is what helped that increase. Taking a look at total assets, the increase was about 4.5 million. Jumping over to liabilities, our liabilities decreased about 320K year over year. Our earned surplus increased about 4.8 million year over year, bringing our total liabilities and earned surplus to an increase of 4.5 million. Jumping over to the cash flow statement. Through September, we had about $15.5 million in operating cash. Now, if you take a look at the bond fund, we do analyze all of the bond fund transfers at the end of the year. With the new system and with our work orders that we now can do in the system, the goal is next year to be able to hopefully start to have this a little bit have at least a little bit more of the system doing the analysis for this, so we might be able to predict this at a quarterly rate if there's any funds left at that point. But right now, there's certain money that's capitalized, there's certain money that's bondable, and there's certain money that's project cost, and we kind of analyze all that and move it over at one time. Any questions for the cable financials?
No.
No.
Good.
Jim, how long have you been with us?
It'll be 3 years in April.
Wow.
Really?
You know, just the transformation and going through and all the push-ups you've done along. I appreciate what you've been doing and getting things organized. I hope things are becoming a little bit easier as you've undone the Gordian knots of inherited spreadsheets.
No, I appreciate that, and it is. The light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter every month.
It might be a
That's-
train, though, coming down. So be
Yeah.
careful.
That's okay. We're ready to get hit. But no, the goal is every month, year, we're trying to get everything a little bit cleaner and a little bit better than it was right before.
Okay. Any other comments?
Just to say that it's nice to see these, and it's easier to read them and understand them. It's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of the things I highlighted to Chris when Chris started here was I thought the need for more transparency and cleaner and better understanding of financials. You've really done your job, and I can't appreciate it more.
Thank you.
Great.
We got a good team behind us helping.
We do. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, and the highlight of the day. Well, other than correspondence. General Manager's highlights, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Kind of a few different themes, starting with the legislative bits. I did, just in the general theme of public power, I threw in what I do find interesting, which is also helpful with our particular business model. But with all of that activity we've talked about in Maine with respect to forming a statewide public power utility, one of the offshoots with that is the fact that Central Maine Power has its ownership back to Spain, and the other one, Versant, has its ownership back to the city of Calgary, and that's raised some red flags about essentially, if you look at the funding against this referendum, basically foreign influence on local elections and local referendums. And so just an interesting topic there that I thought the group would find interesting with respect to, public power is at its very core local and locally owned, and this is one of the things we stay out of the fray with. But yet you look at that foreign ownership spends a substantial amount of money to retain their control over our own business. The other one, a little bit closer to home, U.S. electricity load growth forecast jumps 81%. Again, kind of staying in theme with the DSM programming and strategic electrification. This has, obvious ramifications with respect to distribution, system planning. And so I threw some sources in there for your reference to show things that we should be mindful of and data points we use when planning our system. But summary there is load growth is expected. I threw in a couple cable ones that were interesting and something to perhaps keep in mind as we get through our retransmission consent negotiations on the cable side of the house, and look at our rate studies coming up in the first part of the year in 2024. Again, in the same theme of outside influence, just put some of the private cable utility activities with respect to municipal broadband. So that's that one there. And also the local TV only plans from Comcast, and then others usually follow with that, are now $60 a month, which compares favorably with our current rates of about $40. And that's pre any income qualified discounts or anything like that. So just trying to paint the landscape a little bit, and that is, like I said, basic plans. So that's just the fundamental channels that you can get over the air for free. The over the air process needs significant improvement, in my opinion. Again, rate references, just to throw that in there, in the interest of time, I'll just not get into too much detail on that. Again, another one just that we're continually monitoring that does impact our own rates is with that transmission line and the activity in Maine with respect to building that transmission line, that, you know, there is a high likelihood that those costs will get passed on to ratepayers, and so we monitor that to see how that will affect our transmission rates. In more exciting news, we'll go to the HR component. Ellie Ramos was promoted to credit and collection specialist. She's been excellent, and so we wanted to make sure we gave her some credit at this forum. And I know we're still posting for the double E. That's in there as a standing component, just to show. I mean, it's a tough recruiting environment. And then the other one with Joe DeMarco, I know Bob and I attended his graduation ceremony that NEPA had, what was that, 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
That was a really nice event. He's worked really hard. He's a real asset, as all of our apprentices are working out great. Really nice family. So that was really nice.
Well, just to add on, I mean, he works a full-time job with us. And then what, 1 day a week, I get 1 night a week, right? For the past 4 years, he's gone and completed, I think, 40 units each year to get certified for that. It was very impressive. And to think that we're willing as a town and, you know, as a company to support that. And you know, there's no guarantee that he remains with us.
Yeah.
We get him trained up, and he's good for the entire grid. But it was really nice to see he and his significant other and child at the ceremony. Is great.
Yep. Let's see. Kind of happy to answer questions and anything. I'll skip down to the integrated resources side, given it's in theme with the agenda today. You may have seen a press release. We brought a power supply deal with First Light forward to MWIC for hydropower, which we thought would be a good opportunity for the entirety of the group, especially with these larger providers where clearly we cannot take all of the energy from the project. You bring that to the group, and that way everyone can take a piece of the pie. So there's some press releases on that. We think that's a really nice opportunity, and as you'll see, 15 different MLPs participated in that, and that's good hydropower, including the environmental attributes for 2024 through 29. So that's really nice. And
where was this hydropower?
so in Connecticut, yep. And I
a
believe
big dam there or something?
yes, and I believe there's more than one, if I'm not mistaken. So they own quite a few. And in this particular deal, it's just a smaller subset of their portfolio. But that's always been a really nice asset to have in the portfolio. And then on other news, the AMI project is moving along well. We have over 1,200 meters deployed. That again, just highlighting that because it dovetails with the energy programs as we get the advanced metering infrastructure deployed. That opens the door to advanced rate making, other demand side management programs. It opens the door to a whole plethora of new opportunities there.
Had any pushback from the AMI? At one time they were talking that some people didn't like the idea that you're going to control their electricity.
That's a good question. I think so far, so good.
Oh, good.
You know, I found that there's always going to be a few. But by now, you know, there's a lot. AMI has been discussed for a while, and I think there's a lot of information out there to show it's
But is the plan to do everybody at some time?
yes, we're chipping away. We've made the decision to utilize our in-house crews. So it just with only a few working on it, it works out a lot better for that personal touch and everything. It just takes a little bit longer, but in just a few short months, kudos to them. They have over 1,200, so I think that pace is pretty good. But we'll hit the 16,000 figure, over the next couple of years. And then I'll move to cable. We had a SELCO stream bug that the team quickly addressed. That was isolated to the Amazon Fire Stick. So one of the talking points here that I wanted to mention is, as we progress anything, whether it's your smartphone, whether it's your smart TV, whether it's your EV, and not any EV, I guess I shouldn't even say that, but any vehicle now that you're replacing your knobs with a tablet, it puts more and more focus on the software developers and the software updates that happen. And so here, as we move to stream, it's one of those things where in this Amazon Fire Stick application, the app itself was updated by the developers, and there was a bug in that development. And so what happened was they received the reporting of buffering, and we had to move back to previous version. And I just mentioned somewhat of the detail behind that because that's one of the next era of troubleshooting. In this situation, it's not a cable box that might have a transistor melt or something like that. This is now a streaming device that we hope the software folks behind it, and there's a strong pipeline of training and whatnot to make sure that the app itself is functional. And we do, and every time this happens, we have a robust training regimen internally to add a double layer to that. But it's just worth noting that Stream is going to bring in that extra layer of complexity.
I have a question that maybe Joel can answer. Streaming works extremely well, I think, now with having seen both sides of this thing on whether it's fiber or regular. Fiber seems to be really smooth. I'm now moved back from fiber to regular cable, and I still every once in a while get a blue circle of death, just temporarily. But the question is that due to a speed, or is it just could be something like coming in from who's ever transmitting?
Yeah, it could have been from the bug. That's actually
Yeah.
what the bug was presenting during commercials. That spinning wheel will show up.
Yep.
Yeah, that was part of the issues that we have with the Amazon Fire Sticks. It would show up during commercials specifically. We will see that wheel spinning, and that's kind of what we fix on the. Well, I mean, we work with the manufacturer, and they made the fix.
Okay.
It should be resolved, but I mean, the experience should be the same. Whether you are on cable modem or you are on a fiber modem.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you. Sure.
And I would add, it also is influenced by the vintage device that you have. So if you have, say, an older Fire Stick versus a newer Fire Stick, an older tablet versus a newer tablet, is your Wi-Fi in your home. So it adds a whole layer to our troubleshooting process to see is it an isolated in-home matter, or is it a developer issue? So we go through the progression to get there, which adds emphasis to, I don't see it on this list, but going back to Wi-Fi, continually looking at Wi-Fi, managed Wi-Fi services that we can provide, because the more we can control that and provide that high quality, connectivity to the device, the less likely it is to have a quality control issue. Let's see. And then there's our node report. Again, fiber is pushing forward. And then our standard IT ticketing data.
I'm sorry, if, I see this note here about the community Wi-Fi, and when I was up there
Oh.
for the community lighting, anybody that's up in the common right now, if they look for, search for Wi-Fi, will it come up, and if so, is there a password that's needed, or is it just automatically, because it's free, it's there?
No, that's correct. It is still available. It will show as SELCO Community Wi-Fi. At the moment, it's only available at the Shrewsbury Commons.
But wait,
No password required. You just have to acknowledge the disclaimer that that you're not going to be using the internet access for anything illegal. And aside from that, yes, accepting it, and they will be able to connect.
right,
And just to confirm any misstatement, there are, on that, we do have limitations. Like, there are some guardrails for what you can use it for, as a public resource. So just, it's not to give the wrong impression, it's
Yeah.
not just an open pipeline to the world. There are parameters on that for
Great.
appropriate use.
you know, talk about fiber installs, yeah.
And fiber installs, yeah, the statistics there, let's see. You can see we, again, kudos to the team, they continue to plug away. You know, node 3 right there, 100% on fiber. We have a few 98s, so things are just climbing. You know, kudos, the customer service folks reach out and initiate those contacts, and from there the crews take it away. So we're just continuing that push to get the fiber product rolled out.
Any of those nodes where the cable's coming down?
Yes, we are actually currently working on the center of town. We actually finished completely building all the way from Main Street around St. John's, all the way to the center of town. Also, we came down on Maple Ave, halfway Maple Ave, probably a little bit beyond the police department. And we're also building Spring Street. We're building Main Street all the way to South. We're kind of building that area. So new areas will come up. We're actually working on, and it's on the minutes. We're working on deploying a new technology that is called XGS, or 10 gig. We spoke about it in our last presentation. So it's going to take us a little bit of work to get it up and running, since it is new, and we're working with NISC, our billing vendor. So because it's a new technology, there's a lot more work we have to do in the background. But hopefully, once we have it, we'll be able to provide. Rick is pushing me to provide speed ups to 5 or 10 gigs of service to the residences or businesses in
Both
town.
ways.
So hopefully, we'll have it everywhere. And the goal is to have it where we have fiber, sometime mid next year also.
Okay.
Interesting tidbit I learned from these folks with our 10 gig test bench is they had internet speeds that are actually so fast it exceeded the ability of the hard drives in the computer to actually process the data. So, you know,
That's good.
we are
Yeah.
blazingly fast.
That's the challenge that we're having with the technology. It's so new that even the computers cannot handle it today. So we have Greg Honorado from the IT department, who is he's a guru. That's the way I see him, and he's trying to build, these super fast and powerful computers. Again, the technology is going to last us for the next 10 years. That we're just introducing it now. We're not probably going to be needing 10 gig today, but 10 years from now, that's going to be probably slow. But the theme of this is routers, computers cannot even handle that capacity. So even to do our testing, it's taking us a while to even get our own bench, test bench ready and working.
Mm-hmm. Looks like everything else is pretty much straightforward.
I guess I could take opportunity to highlight one thing. We each month we include the IT ticket counts, since with the Q3 financial presentation and Jim kind of mentioning we're working on IT discussions with the town. These are the data points we use for a couple of things, not only trying to determine the ratios for cost sharing on things we split, for instance, the Google platform, service levels, as well as obviously performance KPIs, how many tickets are open, how quickly do we respond. So by having them in our month-to-month reporting, we can use that for record keeping, performance management, and cost sharing. So that just is something that perhaps I don't touch on regularly.
Okay. So that's pretty much on the general any comments on yesterday's storm?
Oh.
Because
Yes.
it seemed to me like everybody in Shrewsbury has power, but there's about 130,000 people outside of our boundaries that are still waiting for some juice.
Yeah, I could take that one real quick. Yeah, we had, I'd say starting around 6 in the morning, we had, multiple locations with trees and branches down. They resulted in several outages. In typical fashion, I think most everything was restored. I mean, they came down at different times, but each individual outage was restored within a couple of hours or less, depending on the situation. We had then, just coincidentally, if you will, then a hit pole in the late afternoon.
That the one down on Route 20?
On Route 20.
Got hit again?
They got hit again, exactly. Again, they did an admirable job responding to that. And again, when they left, I'm not quite sure what time they left specifically, but it was probably, 7 or 8 o'clock last night. Everyone was fully back to normal, to the point where we had a crew go down on mutual aid to Wallingford, Connecticut.
Wow.
So again, they took care of all the business here. Everyone was back up and running, normal operations, and then that freed us up to go help some other folks.
Is it Hendrix? Is that the name? What's the name of the wire that we use that's heavy duty? Does that help us with these? So some of the pictures I saw where the trees are leaning against the actual utility lines, but they hadn't snapped. And
Yep.
we were able to cut the trees out of the way and be able to.
Yep, that's a great point. Hendrix is the brand name for the spacer cable. The spacer cable is your bundled cable that essentially is tree-proof. So it's a much heavier insulated jacket. So that's where you could see those pictures that you have. Some of the mark materials, you have it through the woods, and all these trees fall on it because it's insulated and it's supported by a steel cable. It's very hard to take that down. So you keep the power running, and that minimizes outage time. And so that's a very robust overhead wire.
Yeah, my concern was the high winds, as how what the OSHA requirements are for our trucks and stuff. You know, put linemen up in the air. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. How can you work on it
yeah,
that way?
yeah. But looked like it worked out.
Exactly. They're
Good deal.
they use very good judgment.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
and they do a great job.
Okay. With that, I think correspondence is one or two items I think that we want to discuss on that, or is there anything?
Was that the same Joe? That
Pardon?
helped Kelly?
Oh, yeah. No.
Not our Kelly?
Huh?
Isn't that our commissioner?
Yeah.
Yes.
She's on the commission.
But I was wondering if it was Joe who just.
Yeah. I just
Who was just
bring this
on
up.
a write-up that just graduated.
Oh, I see.
Different.
Same
I'm
one.
sorry. Different Joe. So
Yeah.
the tire changing Joe is on the cable side.
Okay, so Joe did a good job.
Well, I'm canceling my AAA. And
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to call the service desk. They handle all calls. Okay, and then we had there was one other one, right? And I think you already answered that. That was the one from Ed
Yeah.
Lombard.
Yeah. That's the.
And that was,
Saco
you
Street.
talked about what was going on in that. And I think we've had discussions with him and actually been to his house and got everything we think satisfied. And yes, I'm talking about it. Okay, so that's good. Okay. We have anything else that we need to discuss? Our next meeting is when?
January 30th is here.
Yep. Oops. I'll double check.
Make sure everyone's.
January 30.
Yep.
And we have a, tomorrow, I believe, what, from 12 to 2?
12 to
There is a,
At the station.
that's down at the service center area, right? And that's, okay. Now, that is not, well, that's a ward as well.
It is.
It is, okay. And then, let's see what else. I saw another note in here about a couple of training opportunities for town meeting members in January.
Oh.
But I'm a town meeting member, and I don't know anything about it other than I read it here in the notes. So-
Yes. That, okay, I can speak to that really
Thanks.
quick. Yeah, no, that's a good point. So we have not ramped up widely publishing that yet. So one of our outreach ideas was to engage, I mean, that's a key stakeholder group. So knowing that perhaps not everyone watches, has a chance to tune into the board meetings every month, we thought it would be nice to invite in town meeting members to talk about SELCO, talk about our initiatives, answer questions about our hot topics, whether it be AMI or STREAM, and just generally any questions they may have. As the legislative body for the community, I think it's important that they're well informed about our utility matters, and so that was something that we're looking to schedule.
Okay, so more of a formal invitation will be extended to town meeting members, okay?
Yes.
Okey-doke. Any other questions, comments? No? Do I have a motion to adjourn and to re-meet on the 30th of January 2024 at 0800?
Yes, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
And roll call vote. Maria?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Bob Holland, yes. Thank you. The meeting is
Happy
adjourned
holidays,
at
everyone.
9:24. Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.
Stay safe.